I encourage everyone to take a moment and breathe and take a tea cheers with a Ajiri tea. A Ajiri tea recognizes the beauty in shared stories and shared opportunities. Ajiri sources award-winning tea from Kenya, employs women in the region to handcraft the labels, and sends 100% of the profits back to the region to support orphan education. Save 10% on your order of Kenyan teas and coffee with the code BeautifullyHuman at ajiritea.com. AJIRIT.com. Tea mugs up. Hello, and welcome to the Beautifully Human podcast. I'm Nick Sheesby. In this podcast, I speak with beautiful humans from all around the world, sharing with you their incredible stories, revealing the power in every human story, to spread love and humanity to a world that is in desperate need of it, to show that we can all connect in beautiful ways no matter where we come from or what we look like. What you will find out is that we are all beautifully human. Let's all be beautifully human.
She's been.
Well, hey.
You?
Yeah. So how's things going over in the UK?
It's interesting. It's been a hell of a year. We have a epic government who, to their credit, can't seem to decide what to do. But then I think it's one of those situations where no one really knows what to expect or what's going to happen next. So it's been very back and forth here. We've been in and out of lockdown a lot. Everything just got pretty much released and back to normal in the UK over the summer, and everybody was like, sure, we can go out and have dinner out and go on holiday and whatever. And then suddenly come September, October, we were back to, oh no, this is really serious again and everybody needs to go home. So it's been changeable, but we're getting through it. And we're now rolling out massive vaccine programs apparently. So hopefully this year will be vaccine centric, and then we can kind of find some normality again, I think, hopefully, which has been very sorely missed here recently.
Yes,
but
I can agree with that.
It's good. That's good. We're getting through.
Yeah, we've had a little, I don't even know what you'd call it over here. We haven't really figured anything out yet. Some of us have, but nothing up above has figured it out for us. So we're just perpetually stuck right now.
Yes. Well, hopefully this week things start to move slightly for you guys with a better version of the upper people.
Yeah.
With any luck.
There's at least that, at least there's a change coming in some way, We'll see how effective it is. There's a lot that has to happen, but I'm hopeful, At least I can not be embarrassed and ashamed of my president.
I mean, and that's tomorrow. Key. We're still there, but we still have the. I think someone on the news brilliantly yesterday described our prime minister as a slightly less bizarre and slightly less mean Trump, which I think is a reasonable description of him.
Oh man.
So we still have a while with him, but we'll see what happens.
Oh boy!
Now that Brexit's done, we'll maybe we'll boot him out. I don't know. We'll have to see.
Yeah. So, that whole thing that whole thing's wild. I was touring with a band who's from the UK, and they were kind of explaining it all to me. But what is the benefit of Brexit? I almost said breakfast.
Oh, you tell me, mate. You tell me. I honestly don't know. I mean, I'm not. I follow the news. I'm vaguely aware of the world. I don't sort of sit in my own bubble and not care. But at the same time, I'm not an economist. I'm not trained in any way to comment on proper politics. But equally, for me, as a sort of lovable one world hippie, I can't see the benefit at all of being removed from that kind of environment. I think it's better for us to all have common goals and common values and a common aim, and to be together. That for me was the right way, and being part of the European Union as much as we ever were, we were always a little bit out of it with our own pounds and all that kind of stuff. But
Yeah.
I think it was better, and I don't see honestly at all the benefit of Brexit. And there are many people in this country who, in the same way as you've just been describing, are quite ashamed now to talk to not to talk to people in Europe, but certainly to answer for our country in Europe, because we've shunned it, and it's despicable, really. I don't think it was the right choice for our country, and many will disagree, I'm sure, and there are many that agree
Of
with me.
course.
But we'll have to see how it turns out. But so far, from what we're hearing of this so-called deal, it doesn't seem great to me at all.
Yeah,
So
I'm with you. I'm on the one world hippie. I just
yeah,
don't see why you leave something that's so good.
no,
Like
no, no, we need it.
let's all be together and have one common goal, and we'll move forward together.
Exactly, isn't that
That's just,
lovely? A
to
nice
me, that
idea.
seems like, let's all hug, not this year, but like sing
Oh, yeah.
kumbaya and it'll be fantastic.
Metaphorically, yeah, exactly, yeah. Me too. I think that's always been the way. I mean, my father moved to the south of France when I was only maybe 12 or so, so I've been back and forth from France. He's back in the UK now, actually, as a result of Brexit. It just became
Oh,
um,
wow.
not really economically sound for him to stay over there, because he worked for um, people who holidayed in from the UK into France, and as an English speaker, first language speaker, he tended to get hired by those people who were holidaying from the UK, and that those people have sold their holiday homes and stuff now, and the work just was drying up, and it didn't seem to be a sensible thing for them to stay. So they weren't forced to come back to the UK at all, but as things started to work out, it seemed to be the most sensible version for them. So but I've loved being able to just jump on a plane and go,
Yeah.
and there not be any questions about me going in or out, and there's no issue. And I don't honestly know how that works
Right.
moving forward.
Yeah.
We remain to see. And obviously, for friends of mine, having met you through the touring industry, my friends are in your industry, and it's looking now like they're not going to be able to tour without visas
Yeah.
in Europe, and that's a massive game changer for the whole industry. That realistically puts, I guess, it quite likely that the European tour won't include the UK. There will be a UK tour and a separate European tour,
Yeah.
and that's huge.
Yeah, that
That's
shit is
massive for
crazy.
that industry. It's not great. I mean, in an industry that's already suffering so much from COVID,
Oh God, yeah.
to then have it on the back of that as well. I mean, I met up with everybody in January, February, maybe it was, for the TPI Awards, which is like an industry awards ceremony. And we were just in this room, and it was the very beginning, people starting to know that COVID might be the next big thing that changed everything, and Brexit was just getting sort of starting to roll in the Boris outlook of things, and everyone was just a bit worried, really very worried. And then obviously come March, it all hit, and nobody's worked since, and it's been a bit crazy. But
Yeah.
yeah,
That's wild.
it's a worrying time all round, really, in the UK, but for that industry certainly, and for many
Wow.
industries, no doubt.
Yeah. Wow. I mean, yeah, it's funny because, yeah, the first time I met you, it was I had a lot of thoughts when you started talking about like your dad coming back and like just the state of the worlds and everything, and I was like, man, I remember my dad right before I left. It was the first time I'd ever left this country properly was
Yeah.
the time I met you. And I remember right before
No
I
way.
left. Yeah, right before I left, I my dad dropped me off at the airport in Buffalo, and he was like, when you're over there, you're just gonna you're gonna see how good you have it being here, and you're gonna miss it. And
Okay.
yeah, I know.
Fair
I was holding in my laughter because all I could think was get me the fuck out of here immediately. Like I could
enough.
not get on that plane quick enough.
Oh, bless.
And then I get over there, and it was just so cool. And actually, really, I think this is pretty neat. You were the first person that I actually met. Like, I mean, excluding like hotel workers and whatever, but you're the first
Oh,
friend that I would say I had not in this country that I met in
oh
another
wow.
country. So
Oh,
that's pretty rad.
that's very cool. And it was what now, I think 7 years ago.
Yeah, which is just nuts to think about. It's
Mm,
crazy. And I
it's a
mean,
long
it
time.
was so fun because you took us out and we just went all over
Yeah,
London, and it was so rad. I,
it
I
was
had
such a
such
good
a
day. It was such a good day.
yeah, and it was funny because I remember I like me especially because I'd just never been, and I was just kind of like leaving my phones out, and you were like, "Don't do that, don't do that," and I was like,
Yeah, I mean,
"Oh
don't
shit,
just
okay,
pick that
all
up.
right, yeah, put that in your pocket. Don't just leave it there because it will be gone." But it was so fun.
Amazing.
I just yeah, that was definitely something that I remembered when you messaged me the other day. I was like, man, that was
Oh,
so
fantastic.
cool that you were my
Yeah.
first like actual
And no
friend.
other tour ever got that treatment from me ever, because when I met you guys, I'd just been recently promoted within my company. I worked for a rental house, lighting rental house. So we rented the kit to your tour. And I'd only recently been promoted to deal with sort of full kits like that. Previously, I'd been dealing with dry hires, so just if someone needed an extra 10 lights or an extra lighting desk or whatever, that was my kind of job, was to give them just the kit and small amounts of kit at a time. And your tour was the first time I'd kind of been trusted to put together an entire package for the tour. And so I was like, this is amazing, and I've got real clients, and they're going to come over, and they're American, and they're going to come and see me, or Canadian, I think half of them
Yeah,
were. And so yeah, I kind of sort of came down. You guys came into, or your lighting guys came into the warehouse, and we went out, I think, for dinner, and then met up with you all in London, and we went round to London, and then I think I came to the gig in Manchester as well. Like, I was so on
yeah,
that tour.
yeah, yeah,
I
yeah.
was all about it. It was my favorite thing ever. And then yeah, I did a few more. I did like another year of that after I saw you guys, and then just packed it all in.
Yeah,
Completely switched up my life, which was a pretty monstrous, well, brilliant thing to do, but it was a huge decision. But yeah, no, I've not been in that industry now for. In fact, my Facebook told me this morning that 6 years ago today I handed in my resignation with that company. So it's been
wow,
6 years.
congratulations, that's amazing.
Thanks. I
Yeah,
mean, it was sad, and I loved that company. And when I met you guys, I'm sure you'll attest to the fact that I could have sung from the rooftops that I had the best life in the world. Like, I had
totally.
my own flat in London, and I loved my job, and it was amazing, and I got to go to gigs every night, and I had the most brilliant group of friends around me, and I had so much respect for the company that I worked for, and I couldn't believe I was there, and everything was just incredible. And yet, a year later, I went on holiday, and it just sort of flipped my life on its head, really.
Yeah,
So yeah.
that's
um,
um that's super funny that you were like everyone was from the States, and then you were like, well, I think Canadian. And it was funny because even from the first time I left this country,
yeah,
traveling with Canadians, they were just like, "Hey, man, it's easier just to say you're Canadian." Because I was one of the only. I think I was the only
yeah,
one
I think
from the
so.
states. Yeah, definitely was the only
Yeah,
one from the states, and they were just like, "Dude, we're all Canadian. Just say you're Canadian." And honestly, it was so much easier to just
yeah,
say that I was Canadian because I didn't have to answer to anything states related.
yeah. Don't say you're from America. It's terrible.
So at
Like
least
that.
they I mean, I learned a lot on that tour, but that was definitely one of them. Was just whenever you're traveling, just say you're from Canada. It's much easier, especially these last 4 years. It's been far easier just to
Yeah,
say I'm Canadian.
yeah. Of course,
Oh
of
man.
course.
So this is super fun for me because now it's been 7 years since I've seen you, which is
Hmm.
bonkers to think about.
Yeah.
But I want to get to what you're up to now, but just tell me about like little Jen. Tell me about you growing up. Just tell me about your life so I get to know you.
um, Little Jen. Uh, she was loud and obnoxious and slightly brilliant, but in a very loud and obnoxious way. Um, no, I mean, I've always been like a super outgoing person, I suppose, and I grew up in Plymouth, which is southwest of the UK, in the on the right on the coast. My dad was in the Navy. It's a Navy port. Um, so I was born there, but all of my family, extended family, are in sort of North Wales and Merseyside, and this kind of more north area that I'm in now. So I was 18 years in Plymouth growing up, doing I suddenly decided when I was, I must have been, well, 97, Titanic's fault, that classic movie,
Oh yeah.
Titanic, that I wanted to be James Cameron. I saw stills of James Cameron in a massive tank with like a bigature of Titanic, like it making it sink and stuff. And I just thought it was the coolest job anybody had ever done. Like playing with big toys and making it look real seemed like the best idea ever. So I was completely obsessed from, what was that, 97, so 12, that I was going to be a film director, and that, so my whole life after that was gearing towards being a film director. And it was, youth theatre, and there were two groups, so I did like on stage acting, which I hated, in one group, and then managed to wheedle my way into doing like follow spots or calling lines or whatever for the other group behind the scenes, which I loved so much more. And then I did all the usual drama and media A levels and that kind of stuff. And then I went to university to study film production. And I found a great university in Lincoln who, rather than do film studies, they did media production was the course. So you had to make stuff rather than just critique other people's things, which was cool. And I did that for 3 years. And by the middle of the second year, I'd kind of given up on film. It sort of ruined it for me in a strange way, because it had such passion for film, and it had been my biggest escape, and I loved it so much. It was like had my heart entirely for my whole life. And then I went and studied it and started to make it, and met great people and some really good friends, and then some other people who were just a bit too egocentric, and and I found it all a bit hard to kind of ruin my love of film. But as luck would have it, my university opened a student union venue, which was like a 1,600 capacity gig venue, in Lincoln, which is the weirdest venue you'll ever go to. But it's I have such a big place in my heart for it because it made me, really. But it's a very odd venue. It was designed by architects rather than anybody who has any knowledge of how to put a stage show together.
Gotcha.
But and they rang me and were like, by this point, I'd randomly decided that I was going to be a director of photography because I didn't like act as much, and I wanted to play with the models, but not the people. So I was doing basically at university level, that's lighting, that's making it look pretty. So I was always volunteering in all of my projects to be the lighting person, which was normally the job that went to the person who wanted to be director but didn't get chosen.
Right.
So I was one of the only people that they'd ever known to put myself forward for a lighting role, and they had opened this gig venue and wanted someone to run the lights in the venue. And they rang me up and said, do you fancy coming down and learning from the people who put the install in how to run the lights and do the lights for our sort of small shows and help the crews that come in on the bigger shows? And I was like, that's nothing like what I've been doing. A redhead on a film set is nothing like a moving light on a stage, but sure, why not? I'll come give it a go.
Yeah.
And I ended up being like the head of lights, not knowing what I was doing in this venue, and it's opening year.
Oh, that's amazing.
So for my last year of university, I worked as the lighting tech in the student union, which was a major step up from working in Pizza Hut, which I'd been doing for the rest of my university.
Yeah, I'd say.
So I did that for a year and sort of fell in love with it, and I'd never really been into music much. All of my music upbringing was film soundtracks. It was cool songs that I heard in films. That was it. I didn't really follow bands, and I wasn't really into specific genres or anything. I just liked what I heard on a film, kind of thing. So I found this new kind of love for film, for music, and decided to work in that, to grow my love of music while preserving my love of film by leaving it out of my professional life, I suppose.
Yeah.
So when I left uni, I was lucky enough randomly the summer before, I'd got a job through my dad. Well, not through my dad. He told me it existed, but in typical my father style, and this is probably why I've always been such an outgoing person, he told me that the job was there, but he wasn't going to put me forward for it. He was like, you want it, you go and get it. I'm not going to tell them you're my daughter. I'm not going to, you need to go and sell yourself and get the job yourself. But he worked on a private yacht that was doing a 7-week charter, which happened to coincide pretty perfectly with the 7 weeks that I was off uni for the summer.
Oh,
So I
nice.
managed to get myself a job in the laundry of this private yacht, washing rich people's clothes for insane amounts of money, cash in hand, no tax because you were working at sea.
Oh,
So I
sure.
paid off my uni debt for that year, and then went back to uni with money in my pocket and bought everybody's round for about 3 months afterwards. And then after uni, I went and did the same thing again on the same boat and did another season, and then came back to sort of start my epic journey in live music lighting and stuff, and went and worked for a company in Bristol who, as a moving lights tech, again flying by the seat of my pants, not really knowing how to fix a moving light, but you do enough of them and you figure it out. It's basically a big jigsaw puzzle. So I've always been kind of able to fall into a job and hit the ground running and ask the right questions, I guess, be brave enough to ask the right questions and not worry about looking like a bit of an idiot if you don't know.
Yeah.
And therefore, learning on the job. And so, yeah, I was a moving lights tech for years in a few different companies, and then went and worked for Carnival Cruise Lines out of America for a year or so
Nice.
as a lighting tech for the main lounge shows. That was insane, but great fun. I was out of Mobile, Alabama for 6 months.
Oh, wow.
So it was epic.
Yeah.
Such fun.
The moon pie capital of the States.
Yeah. Cracker Barrel is my favorite thing in the world.
Oh,
I miss
no.
Cracker Barrel so much. This discovery of Cracker Barrel when I was in
Oh,
Mobile.
man,
But yeah,
that's
so I
amazing.
went there for 6 months, and then I had another contract, half of it out in New York and half out of we relocated to Fort Lauderdale about halfway through my contract. So both on that contract, which was great. And then I moved to London and
Wow.
met you guys. Well, I did a stint in a theatre company, a theatre lighting company, and then got pillaged by the control department of the company that I worked for when I met you, and worked my way up from warehouse through the office, dry hires, and then to projects, which was where I got to meet you guys. There you go. It's Jen
That,
in a nutshell.
man, that's so cool. There's so much in there. That's
Notice I tell my whole story though by career. Like that's very much me. Like
yeah.
what job was I doing at that time? I've always been very like, it's all about the job. So
Yeah.
so yeah, I did a lot of traveling, like obviously private yachts. I was in the Mediterranean, so I was ported in Barcelona for most of it, and then we would go up and down the Med Coast depending on the will of the person who was chartering or the owner of the boat, whoever was there at the time. We'd randomly up anchor and flit off to somewhere else.
Yeah. That's so amazing.
And then obviously travel with Carnival as well. So yeah,
Yeah.
did some great travel, but never, I think similar to you, never really under my own sails, more at the will of someone else, but saw some great places for it,
Yeah, funny enough, that was exactly what I was going to ask you next. Was where your favorite places you went on the private charter? And I mean, besides Mobile, Alabama. I mean, it's hard to top Mobile.
It is very hard to top Mobile, Alabama. We had some excellent times there.
Were you there?
On the
Were you there for any of their Mardi Gras celebrations in Mobile?
No, we were. I mean, Mobile, because it was our dock day, we were only ever there really for a few hours during the day while they carted off a bunch of people and put a new bunch of people on.
Yeah.
But we were very lucky in that we dry docked for a week in Mobile as well. So most of the crew were signed off and got to go home or on holiday or whatever for a week while they did work on the ship's engines and things. But we, as the tech crew, dismantled the rig and cleaned it all up and got it like a complete reinstall of the rig, and got all the lenses cleaned and everything, all the pyro sorted out and things. So we got to stay, and we worked during the day and went out at night, and it was one of the weirdest experiences of my life. But it was great.
Yeah, I can imagine. Yeah.
It was, there was bits of it that I loved and bits of it that I was not quite so sure about. But there's a piano bar in downtown Mobile, Alabama, which we spent a lot of time in. Which was good fun, but that was the only time I was ever in the States in the dark.
Okay.
The full year I was there, it was daylight hours only. So, but that 1 week we were there.
That's so funny. I love that description, in the dark.
I got to go in the dark, which is weird.
Yeah.
And then that piano bar, bless their hearts, nearly killed me. I I'd been obviously working on a cruise ship for about 4 or 5 months by that point, and beers are $1 in the crew bar, and would drink quite excessive amounts for the whole of my. So I was an all right drinker. I wouldn't get drunk very easily. And then we went out the first night. We went out. We were chatting to the bar staff and having a nice time with everybody, and it was all good times. And I left that bar after 3 drinks. I probably couldn't tell you my name. I was so drunk, like I couldn't deal with it, and I genuinely thought that I'd been spiked. Like I
Oh man.
couldn't work out what had happened. I was like, "This is really bad. Somebody get me home." And I felt awful the next day. Then of course we went back that night. Like I was like, "Oh, hair of the dog. Let's go and get another drink. It'll be fine."
Yeah.
And I saw the guy behind the bar was the same guy, and I went in and said, "You know, do you ever have a problem with spiked drinks or anything? Do I need to be careful? Because I went home from here last night." And he just went pale. And I was like, what are you looking at me like that for? And he said, "I just thought you guys were so much fun that I was like, I was dealing you triples instead of singles."
Oh,
And I
okay.
was like, "Dude, you can't, like, please don't ever do that to me again. I'll have a single." I was drinking, I don't know, Southern Comfort or something like that. But he was dealing me triples. So I'd had
Yeah.
like 9 drinks in a couple of hours, and I was toasted. Like,
Yeah.
bless him. He was like just trying to do something solid for someone that he thought was cool, and he nearly killed me.
Man.
But it was sweet of him, nonetheless.
Right, right.
Not a great
Ah.
idea, but
Yeah,
that's sweet.
funny you say that. I close to there is Pensacola, and I actually did get roofied one night on
No way.
tour. And it was the most horrifying experience. So I'm glad you didn't have to go through that. It was absolutely horrifying.
Yeah,
Like I lost
yeah.
I lost control of everything. I ran out in front of a police car. I didn't know it was a police car, but I just
Right.
ran out in the middle of the road and like cut my toe, and they pulled their guns on me, and I'm shocked I didn't just get shot, you know. That's typically
Yeah,
how it goes
yeah.
here. I guess cuz I'm white,
Mm,
it kind of worked out. But
a little bit, yeah.
yeah, it's man, it is kind of scary in those places. You never know, you know. So I'm glad you figured out that he was just being cool and slipping you some
Yeah,
some
bless him.
very stiff drinks.
Yes, very stiff drinks, very, very stiff, bless him. But yeah, no, it was good. But everybody was like ridiculously friendly and such sweet people, and like proper salt of the earth, lovely, lovely people to me.
Yeah.
And then, there were moments where we'd be sat to people at the bar or whatever, and their expressions would just drop, and I remember vividly turning around to look to see what on earth had just offended them so immensely. And it was my solidly beautiful, lovely friend who I worked on the ship with had come out to meet me for a drink and walked in, and he was black. And
Yeah.
these guys were just like, "What the hell's he doing in here?" And I'm like, "Whoa, okay, he's here to see me, and I'm going to go and have a drink with him. So
Yeah.
if that's not all right, then I'll move away. But we're going to be over here having a drink." And it was just the most awkward, because I'd never experienced that before, ever.
Yeah.
That just degree of that person's different and they don't belong here. It's not something that, I mean, racism is certainly still a thing in the UK too, but not in my world. It doesn't exist in my world at all. It's just my family are incredibly open and accepting of everybody, and I just had never even considered it being a problem before that moment. And then
Yeah.
I thought, oh God, this is it. This is real.
Yeah.
Is this going to be trouble? And it was terrifying. It was terrifying. And brilliant story. I was on that ship out of Mobile, Alabama the day that Obama got elected.
Ah, beautiful.
My goodness, that was interesting. Whew.
Yeah, that's not a celebration area for that kind of
No,
that kind
goodness
of
no.
change
We
in the
we
world.
we had to keep very straight faces. Like the crew bar erupted when it was forecast that he was going to be president. It
Yeah.
was just, we were all so giddy. And then we had to walk out into the guest areas, like, try and keep a straight face, don't smile, everybody's really upset, this is really bad. Like, it
Yeah.
was, yeah, it was experience.
Yeah, that one, for as much good as as Obama did, it's hard to think of it of like, and I don't want to go too far into politics, but like my thought on
Sure.
it is like it was so good for this country to have that. And
Mhm.
like traveling during that era was just so good, and everyone was so
Yeah.
hopeful, and like it was something so different. And then like I also think it just stirred up so much racism
Mhm.
Like
Yeah.
that's always been there. Like you said, it's in the UK. It's all over
Yeah.
the world. It always is going to be.
Yeah.
And anyone that denies that is just absurd. But I think it just makes me so sad to think that like that 8 years was just like brewing and brewing and brewing and brewing,
Yeah.
and then like
And
all of a
paved the
sudden,
way really for Trump to be elected because
yeah,
it did, as you say, stir up so much. We don't want this. I mean,
yeah,
there was a guy on the that night that wasn't allowed to use his own karaoke backing track because of corporate copyright or whatever, and he was told he couldn't use it, and he was screaming down the Lido deck, shouting about how there'd been a black man in the White House for 10 minutes and the world's already gone to shit. And you think, well, that he didn't say you couldn't use your own CD, what, but that was his take
Jesus,
on the world, was just, well, it's all ruined now because, and I think, as you say, it did just bring out the worst in some people and inspire someone like Trump to be able to stand up and say, well, I don't stand for that, follow me instead.
yeah,
And God knows how get himself into power. And it's terrifying, really.
yeah,
But yeah, maybe the country wasn't ready for, but they need to be ready. Those
right,
challenges need to be taken, but it does
yeah,
breed
yeah.
extra challenges for sure.
Yeah, I'm happy. Obviously, I'm happy it happened, but yeah, I think it definitely like
Mm,
there's a lot of so much good that came of it, but also there's just such an
mhm,
underlying wave of shit that
mhm.
that came out of it as
Yeah,
well.
yeah, absolutely.
And amazing that
Absolutely.
you were in this country in such a area that, you
Yeah.
know, you saw that
Mm,
firsthand, you know. Like
mm.
I wouldn't even
Yeah,
have to
yeah.
tell you. You'd be like, "Oh yeah, no, I fully understand." Like,
Oh, it was terrifying. We did a show called Extreme Country, which I'm sure you can imagine
oh
was
Lord.
epic.
Yeah.
And it finished with Proud to be an American,
Mm.
with a, confetti, red, white, and blue confetti, a flag drop, pyro, the whole shebang. And every week it was just this eruption of people standing, that what's the line, and I'll gladly stand up next to you and defend
Mhm.
her still today, or something along those lines. And the whole crowd would stand up. There'd be hats being thrown, whooping and hollering like it was insane. One of my friends, who was the sound tech, the first day was like, "You wait for this. You'll like this." And it was really lovely to see people being so like excited about their country, and it's great. And the day that election happened, we had an Extreme Country show, and we did two shows a night for opposite dinner seating. And on the first show, all of the southern states had said who'd won and whatever, so it was looking good for the Republicans. And everybody, like, it was the biggest eruption you've ever seen. And then between the two shows, it was forecast Obama had been elected.
Oof.
And I genuinely was worried for the dancers who were lined up singing this song with their hands on their hearts in front of, like, not very far away audience, because
Right.
people were literally, taking their arms from round their wives so that they could cross their arms and look all stern and annoyed. And it was just like nobody made a sound. I don't think there was even applause at the end of the show. Like, it was
Wow.
such a switch from 3 hours earlier.
Holy
Really
shit.
odd situation to witness, as somebody who was very keen on the outcome of that election,
Right.
even selfishly. It
Yeah,
does
yeah.
have an impact globally, and anybody who
Right.
denies that, idiotic.
Yes.
But it wasn't my election. I wasn't part of it, but to witness it from
Yeah.
the outside was very strange. It was a really weird experience, but one that I'm glad I had, because I
Totally.
think, as you say, I've got a better understanding now of actually the reality of it. We can all sit here and watch news programs and see the way that it's presented as to whether or not there is or isn't, racism and corruption or whatever in the States. But to have witnessed that and experienced that, you couldn't explain to me in any better way than just sitting in that room that one day.
Yeah.
So
Oh, absolutely.
it was a good experience to have.
That's exactly right. I was just gonna say you you got it firsthand. Like the best
Mm,
news you could ever see was just experiencing it in that
yeah,
way.
yeah,
Oh
yeah.
man. All right. So on the note of travel, and I mean it's funny that it comes up this way because I always talk about like travel and culture and just like getting to appreciate different cultures that you're in, and it's really funny that it presented
Yeah.
itself in that way today. hearing
Yeah.
about the culture here or the lack of culture. Um, in all your travels, because I know you've traveled quite a bit. What's your favorite place you've been?
Ooh. Um, my favorite place I've been.
I know
Very
that's a
good
tough
question.
one.
It might not be that, but I mean, I love Barcelona. Is insane. It is entirely your place. You have to go there. It's super bohemian and it's fabulous, and you'd love it if you haven't been. Go.
I have not.
And yeah, you should, man. It's very up your street, I think.
Yeah, I flew through there. I went to Madrid and I loved Madrid.
Mm-hmm.
Then I flew through Barcelona and I had a layover and I was very tempted to take a cabin to the city and just walk around the city center and then go back to the airport. But then I had a longer customs than I thought I would, so I didn't get to. But it's
Yeah,
definitely on my list of places to go.
yeah. It's a great city. I mean, it's got its same as London, like, keep your phone where you can see it and that
Right.
kind of stuff. The tourist central place, and there is La Ramblas is famed for stuff going missing out of bags, but it's worth it for the architecture is incredible, and there's just some amazing history in that city. It's wonderful. It's a really lovely place to see. But I like the kind of smaller town. Like when my dad lived in the south of France, he lived near Nice and Cannes, and those cities are amazing. But there's a smaller port town called Antibes, which is a bit further down, and it's more kind of villagey, I suppose. And it's everybody knows each other, and you can go and stand in a bar, and you never just talk to the people that you with it. You end up in a conversation with other, and I think that's what I like. I'm a small town person more than a. I mean, Antibes isn't small, but it's much smaller than Cannes and Nice. I'm not really a city
Yeah.
girl, as it. Um, so I like those sort of little places and um, sort of villagey stuff, which I never really got to see huge amounts of, especially in sort of America and the Caribbean and that kind of area where I was traveling with Carnival, because you saw the cruise ports and they
Right.
all look the same.
Yeah. Yeah.
They've
Yeah.
all got a tequila bar and a diamond shop, and um,
Yep.
St. Martin was fabulous. I really enjoyed St. Martin. We did a lot of America's Cup yacht days out. Like they pretend to race, but it's just a booze cruise on a yacht,
Sure.
really. But it was lovely. I sailed. My dad's a sailor, and I sailed when I was a kid. So it was great to get on a real, they're retired America's Cup yachts, and that was such a treat to be able to sail properly in a boat like that. Was incredible. That was really good fun.
That's
So
so
St.
awesome.
Martin and St. Thomas, those kind of island places, I really liked. Um, and then in the UK really as well. I like getting around the UK, and there's a lot of incredible countryside here.
Mm-hmm.
And Rhossili was an absolute highlight. There's a place called Rhossili Bay in South Wales, and it's
Okay.
just the most incredible place I've ever been. And that was the holiday that just finished my career and started me off on my new path, because it made me think a bit too much about whether I actually enjoyed my life, because it was so nice there. I was like, why do I live in London? I'm not a city girl. I want to be here. So
Yeah.
um
That's so cool.
yeah, so that yeah, and it was such a blessing of a trip too, because I hadn't chosen it. I hadn't gone, right, I've never really been on holiday much, a couple of times, but I've always traveled for work. And then when I've been given the opportunity to go on holiday, or had some time off or had enough money to travel, I would go like down to France and see my dad, or I'd go and visit my parents and my family up here or whatever. So I'd never really just sort of picked a point on a map and gone somewhere on holiday. But
Yeah.
my flatmate and really good friend from uni I used to live with in London, her sister won a competition to go and stay in this building called the Old Rectory in Rhossili, which is basically the only building in Rhossili Bay.
Oh
There's
wow.
nothing else there. It's like a cliff that drops down onto the bay, and it levels out about 2/3 of the way down into a flat piece of grass
Huh.
that the Old Rectory is sat on, and then it drops again to the beach, and that's it. There's nothing else.
That's amazing.
And she won this competition to spend a week in this tiny building in the middle of a cliff on a bay in South Wales. And incredible.
It
And
sounds
because
magical.
it had to be taken, yeah, man, you should look it up. It's epic. I'll send you the spelling because you'll never find it otherwise.
Yeah.
But it had to be taken in non-peak times. So she, all her friends, she was older than us, and all her friends were sort of married kids and could only go on holiday during school holidays and that kind of stuff. So she rang her sister and said, "Do you want to come?" And that fits 6 people. So, bring some friends. If you, I love all your friends, bring them all along, kind of thing. So we all went down there for the weekend, and there was an extra space at one end of the week because someone had to leave early. So they asked my mum, bless them, if she wanted to come too. So my mum came down from North Wales, where she was living at the time, looking after my nan who had Alzheimer's, and my mum had moved in with her to be her carer. And she deserved a holiday more than anyone in the world. So they
Definitely.
invited her for a couple of days break to stay with us in Rosilly. And I'd been there for a few days already, and my mum came to stay, and we went for this sort of walk on the cliffs, and we were overlooking the cliffs, talking about the house prices there and how wouldn't it be great to live here, and it must be 2 or 3 million a house in that area, like it's ludicrous money. But the other end of the bay, there's like a caravan site, and I was like, well, I would live in a caravan and clean caravans for a living for 4 hours a day to just then sit on the beach for the rest of the day, and I'd be blissfully happy.
Totally.
And in that random throwaway statement, my life just unraveled completely. Because I started to see the cracks of my story of, I love my life and it's incredible, and I've got a flat and I've got all these people and I've got this job that's amazing and people would give their right arm for, and I did, and it was all epic, but I don't think it was ever really me. And I, as much as I enjoyed it at the time, now I look back on it, I mean, being in tears was a routine thing for me when I lived in London. It's such a high stress place that I was constantly just like, now I can see it. Now I look back on it, I can see that I was so stressed and my temper was short, and little things annoyed me, and the smallest problem could become such a huge drama because I was just so constantly highly strung the whole time.
Yeah.
And I'd go home from work and like cry myself to sleep because I'd made an error or something had happened, or I don't know, any number of reasons why it was just I wasn't happy that day. And yet you asked me and I'd be like, oh, I've got the best job in the world and I live in the best city and I've the most wonderful people. And it was such a weird thing to go to Rosilly and go, wow, God, this is so tranquil and so beautiful and so peaceful, and I can be alone with my own thoughts for 5 minutes, which is terrifying when you haven't allowed yourself to think for 10 years.
Oh my God. Yeah.
It's a big deal,
Yeah.
So and I just, things started to crack, and I went back to London and I was just like, I don't really like this anymore. I'm not really feeling it. And I'd had this crazy plan that I'd sort of been spouting to people for years about how when I retired, I wanted to retrain as a therapist and have a plot of land somewhere with horses and dogs and whatever that people could come to, like a retreat. And rather than sit in a room with someone and have a therapy session, we could go out on a hack on the horse and chat to the therapist while you're riding the horse, or go for a walk with the dogs, or go and muck a stable out and have a conversation with someone while you're busy doing something, rather than just sitting across the room from them.
Yeah.
And my mum, bless her, was like, well, if you don't like your life in London anymore, I need a job. She'd sold her house and moved in with her mum, and there would come a point at which she would need to move out of that, when Nan went into care, or she would need a place to live, which she could buy because she had the money from her previous house, but she wanted it somehow to earn her some money.
Yeah. Okay.
But she didn't have any time to actually set up a business or buy a house and do it up or any of that kind of stuff. And I'd bought a flat in London, which had rocketed somehow by about 65 grand in the house market.
Wow.
So selling that would have gained me 65 grand. So we came up with this crazy plan. Well, why don't we do something with animals then? I've worked with rescues since I was a baby. Like, as soon as I was allowed to walk a dog, I was in rescues, walking dogs.
Love that.
And I could never have one because I was never in the situation to do so. But
Yeah.
it was always that payoff was that I would work with rescues so that I had my fix of animals while I was, she said, well, it doesn't have to be like a therapy retreat, but we could do something with, why don't we get a boarding kennels or something like that? And maybe that would be a way forward. And when I'm no longer looking after your nan, I can come and help out and be a second pair of hands, and we'll go in on it. I'll give you all of my money. Crazy
Wow.
woman. I'll give you all of my money, buy a house and set up a business. As long as it feeds me and houses me through retirement, you can do what you want. And
That's
I mean, it was
incredible.
the biggest gift anybody has ever given me. It was just, and it was worked. I mean, it was terrifying, and but I put my house on the market, and I thought, if I can sell my house and I can get a decent amount of money for it, we can do this. And it all happened a bit quicker than I expected. And within like a month, I'd sold my house and handed in my resignation with Neg, and I was moving up north. And we looked at kennels because I've always been a dog person. But she sold it, she twisted it. She's very clever, my mother. She knew that I'd done this thing with music and film when I was studying.
Yeah.
She was like, you won't like dogs if you make them your business.
Yeah. Okay.
What about you have your own dog and we do cats for the business? Because I'm like, really, cats?
Yeah.
And well, now I have 4 cats of my own, and we run, built from scratch and started in Southport in Merseyside, a boarding cattery which we look after people's cats when they go on holiday, if they're ever allowed to go on holiday again. And
Right.
and also I've become heavily involved in local rescues here, and we have this incredible rescue pen on site here, which I do cats who are in need of serious healing. Some, for example, we have 3 at the moment. One has a quite gross story, but a burst abscess wound on his chest, so he needs wound dressings and stuff like that. One of them has a lovely broken pelvis and potential paralysis in his back end, so he's on crate rest at the moment. And we have Madam, who I sent you a video of earlier with the stroppy tail.
Yep.
She just needs a bit of an attitude assessment. She's been returned sadly from 2 homes because she's bitten her owners. She's been rehomed and got so stressed in the new environment, and they've tried to calm her down with too handsy an approach, I suspect. And so she's come to me to decide whether or not she wants to like people, and she's currently curled up on my lap and has been asleep on my lap this entire conversation. So there's hope for her. But
Yeah.
She was completely right. I have my own dog, and she is my world, and I love her to bits. But I now have a real passion for not only cats as pets, but the psychology of cats, and helping them through difficult transitions, and also their behavior and why they operate in certain ways, and have been studying all of that since I got here. So it's huge life change, but definitely all for the better. It's, and not for everybody, you know what I mean? I don't think everybody should
Right.
suddenly pack up their life if they've had a difficult day and move to the coast and get a cattery. But it took a lot for me to be sort of honest with myself, I suppose, about what I actually wanted out of life, because I'd been following a path of career and the life goals for so many years.
Sure.
And lots of people said, you've been working at this for 10 years. Do you want to throw it all away? Throw it all away came up a lot as a phrase in this transition. And I was like, I'm not throwing anything away. I've just done it. I've finished that now. And now I'm going to do something else, So it was a big decision.
Yeah.
And one not for everybody, but it's been the making of me completely. I think they say you don't get a second chance at a first impression, I suppose, on people, but I'd be inclined to say that if we met again, you'd be meeting an entirely different person to the girl that you met 7 years ago.
Yeah.
Much less of a mask. You'd meet the real me rather than
Definitely
the version of me that was supposed to be what I was trying to do down there,
Yeah.
So it's been
that's incredible. I love that. I love that so much. I'm just like, you can't see me, but my cheeks are hurting because I'm smiling so much. I just love this. I love this story. And I mean, much the same, like I didn't really shift careers at all, but you would meet a whole different me. I'm a far different person,
and I think that's,
with my journey and my sobriety and all that.
Absolutely.
That was when I met you. It was like the start of my darkest period of my life. So you would You saw me in a joyful part because I was not in
Yeah.
the States, but that was definitely the like slippery slope I was going down. But
Yeah,
man,
yeah.
I think it's so, like you said, the psychology of cats. I mean, how fascinating. I
Yeah,
have
it's really, yeah.
I have
I
three
really,
feral cats outside of the house that I
oh
live in with
really?
my partner, and they were her neighbor's cats. And
Hmm.
he passed, and she kind of lured them over, and she feeds them, you know. And then I got here, and I love, 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 love animals. I am a sucker for all animals, big and small. And so I fell in love with these cats, and it is like my joy every morning. I wake up and I get to go feed them, and one of them lets me pet her, and her name is Violet.
Oh, brilliant.
And I love her. I'll send you a photo, and I'll send you
Yeah, do
some
please.
videos. She's just adorable. And the other two, one is Violet's mom, and she's just feeling it out. Lindsay called her eyes because she just always has shit hanging out of her eyes. She is just like a gloopy mess in her eyeballs
Yeah.
every time. So her name's Eyes. Then there's another one called Two, and I think he's deaf, which is really sad. So,
Mm,
but they're both those two are very standoffish with me. And then
sure.
Violet has just been like the most loving, sweet girl. She just purrs all the time until like the other day she caught a bird, and I got really sad, and like I ran her off, and then the bird still passed, and I was like, what do I is that like interfering with
Yeah.
nature? And then I made the bird suffer, and you know, that
I
whole
know it's difficult, isn't
I'm
it?
like,
Because I
nature's
think
a cruel
the
fucking thing. And I want to
oh
help,
yeah, but
but
equally it's not really nature because we introduced cats, domestic cats, to I think both America and the UK. That so the bird population of the UK has been set upon by what we decided we wanted to have as as our
right.
pets. So they are, the small bird population of the UK is certainly in decline as a result of so many people having pet cats
Yeah.
that are allowed to go outside and roam and do what they want. So, I mean, if you can save them, all the better, I think. But
Yeah, I
yeah,
will
if they're
always
going to
err
die
on that
anyway,
side. Yeah.
then potentially it's a harsher way to go slowly. But
Yeah.
you know,
I'll
it's a tough
always
call.
err on saving them though. Um
Absolutely, yeah, yeah, definitely.
I have to tell you this story just because I think you'll enjoy
Mhm.
it. But when we before we left for the summer, we bought a van and drove around the country and stayed away
Yes,
from
I'm so
people,
jealous.
and it was rad. It was so good. But the story involves little sweet little Violet. She came in the backyard one day, and she just looked like hell and was not happy and was just like running away from me. And I was like, Violet, what's wrong? Anyway, I didn't necessarily know this, but when animals are sick and not, you know, not doing well, they like to hide and like be away from
Yeah.
everybody and like go, you know. So
Mhm.
I learned that lesson. But me being the caretaker, I was like, "Oh my god, I have to make Violet better. Like what's going on?" You know, we were going to trap her and like take her into the vet, but she just would, you know, obviously wouldn't come. She just stayed under this bush in the house next to ours. And so
Mhm.
I would go and check on her all the time, and I was just getting so bummed because she was just so sad, and she's very young. I think she's not even 2, so she's very very young. And
Sure.
anyway, flash forward, it was like a day and a half later, and I'm just standing at our back door. And I'm not even joking on the timeline of this. Lindsay could come in and be like, it's 100% true. I was just like super bummed out. I was like, man, I don't want to find a lump of violet, you know, like that's going to
Yeah.
severely bum me out. And I was just standing at the back door, and I was like, God damn it. I just wish Violet would walk by right now. And literally, as I said that, here she comes, like pitifully walking up. And I'm just like, I break out in tears and I run outside. Well, I didn't run because I knew it would freak her out, but I go outside,
Yeah.
and was just like, "Rah," you know, her typical, like, but kind of sad, you know, just like meowing at me. And
Mhm.
I just started petting her, and then she actually just like sat in my lap, and I was like, "Oh my god, she's never done that before." And she just sat there
Yeah.
for like 30 seconds, and then I was like, "Are you hungry?" And she just went nutso. So I went and got food, and I fed her, and I sat with her for like 10 minutes, and then she kind of ran off again, and I was like, "Well, I hope I see you in the morning." But it was like one of the most just rewarding. And at the same
Yeah.
moment, I said, I just wish Violet would walk by. And then there she went. And then we had this
Oh,
beautiful moment.
brilliant.
And now she's great, except she kills
Yeah.
birds.
Well, I mean, it's lovely, especially when you have animals who are not super responsive, not super trusting, not sure how to deal with you. To then have that connection with them is incredible. Like it's such a gift. To not necessarily, I'm not a huge advocate for like taming feral cats and forcing them to be inside when they don't want to. I think that's unnecessary and
Yeah.
not what they want. But certainly, like my dog, for example, is a Romanian rescue. She came over
Right.
from Romania to a UK rescue, and then I rehomed her from there. Um, but since then, I've had the pleasure of getting to know the woman who rescued her in the first place, and I offered her the opportunity to sort of use and abuse my skills for a week. And the only holiday I've had in ages, I took 10 days off work and went to Romania to stay in the shelter that Rita came from.
That's so
And
amazing.
a lot of the dogs, I'm now still heavily involved with the rescue that Rita came from here. And a lot of the dogs that come over, obviously, it isn't as straightforward as adopting um, a dog in the UK, certainly like a bred dog from a breeder or whatever. But I think all dogs come with an a need to do something to step out your comfort zone and train in some way or whatever. But the beautiful rewards of them being these sort of Romanian frightened, worried dogs is to see them relax after a few
Yeah.
weeks or a few days or whatever, and for them to let down that wall of worry and come and put their head in your hand or
Yeah.
spend a bit of time with you, wag their tail when they see you or any of that is just it's just the most brilliant gift when you know that you've made that breakthrough with them and they feel comfortable and confident and calm. And even this cat that I've got sat on my lap now, she's been returned from 2 homes for biting, and she growls at me, bless her, because she doesn't seem to know what she's doing. She's like, she'll rub up against your leg while growling at you as if a bit of a warning as to,
Yeah.
I'm going to test the waters here and see how we get on, but if you move too quickly, I'm going to
Right.
sink
Right.
my teeth into your leg. That's
Yeah.
how it's going to work, kind of. I think she's just very confused by life and what she's supposed to get out of it. But the more I sit here on the phone and let her just lie on my lap and not get poked at, not get worried, not try and pick her up or move her or do anything with her, just let her be there, comfortable and happy, and not being, attacked in any way, the more she's going to learn that it's okay to let your guard down around people and to
Yeah.
be comfortable inside and happy to be around. And hopefully eventually the result will be that we'll be able to find her a home where they understand her needs and they have some patience to let her settle properly and not be too full on with her, but where she can then spend a life. And that's
Yeah.
a hugely enriched thing for anybody. To I think to adopt a needy animal or an animal that you have to understand and try and help them through a problem will create such an incredible bond between you and that animal that it's worth every scratch or whatever you have to go through to get there. So
Yeah. Well, I'm happy to contribute to her and her comfortability. So I'm happy to help with that. But
yeah,
yeah, I think
indeed.
that's such
It's
a
very
I I think that's such a beautiful gift. Like I think I would absolutely love to do what you're doing. I think I would, and I'm sure you feel this as well, but when one gets adopted, I feel I would be just my heart. I would lose a little bit of my heart every time that an
Yeah,
animal that I
I
rehab.
think there's a lot of. I mean, we don't have our own rescue here. We don't. We're not. I'm not the head of a rescue. I never could be. I don't have the. I don't know how they do it, to be honest. They're incredible people that run rescues. What we do is foster for
Ah, yeah,
a number of local rescues because we have a setup here which is good for different. Like normally putting a cat into foster, they just go into a kind of home environment and it's all very normal. When you have an animal that needs 6 weeks of crate rest because they broke their pelvis, that's not something that's super easy to find in a foster. So
sure, yeah,
we offer that kind of space, that kind of healing space, and that kind of idea to a couple of different local rescues. But a lot of the fosterers, that's what, they'll burst into tears when they go and that kind of stuff. And and it is, you do miss them, but through the power of social media,
Of
you
course,
can
yeah.
keep up with their stories and all the rest of it, which is great.
Yeah.
But I think for me, and thankfully my family are the same, because I've thoroughly inflicted this, we're going to foster these animals, on my family as well, because I live with them.
Yeah.
They have to go through it almost as much as I do. We keep them outside in this pen for the most part, so they don't have to be super involved, but there are occasions where they sneak into the house. We have one in the house at the moment who, through absolutely no fault of his own, has also been returned twice from homes.
Mm.
Which is just a nightmare, because when he arrived, he was 12 weeks old, and I can't, in good faith, put a 12-week-old kitten in a pen outside. They get to come in the house. That's how it works. He was paralyzed at his back end. He's got a broken front paw that's broken and reset before he ever came to us. So it sits at a sort of, he looks like if you can imagine a butler or a waiter with a towel over their arm. He sits in that kind of position with one of his front arms. Which is fun.
Yeah.
But he was a severely disabled cat that we genuinely didn't know whether he was going to survive or not. So he got to stay in the house. And because of the way it's worked out with his healing and his rehab, and how he's had to be weaned very slowly off medications and this kind of stuff in order to be the cat he is now, which is, off all medications, not on any painkillers at all, and running around and happy and everything. It's great for his world. Still disabled, still crooked, but working and functioning, and has a great quality of life. That's taken really quite a long time. And actually, yesterday, I think it was his first birthday. So we've had him from 3 months to a year, and he's being adopted at the end of this month.
Beautiful.
And because he's been in the house as well, he's been there with my mum, and my sister stays with us at the moment as well. So we've all been through his kind of journey together as a family, because he's been in the house. And everybody's like, how could you possibly rehome him? You'll never be able to say goodbye. And you know what? We've always said, all three of us, that goodbye is the goal. That's our motto. Goodbye is the goal. If we can get that cat to the point where he's able to go and have a normal life with a normal family that will love him forever and look after him, and he will be their one and only awesome dedication, then we've done our job. And that can only be a good thing. So as much as we might miss having him around, and it may feel a bit quiet for a while, it's a very good day, the day he gets adopted.
Yeah. I love that. That's so beautiful.
Yeah, so we look forward to it. We've got 2 more weeks, because the people who are going to take him are having some work done on the house.
Okay.
But as soon as they're ready, he shoots off at the end of this month, and hopefully, third time lucky, that will be the making of him. And they're actually previous adopters who've taken a disabled cat from me before, so I know them well, and I know that they'll do right by him. And so it's going to be a good day, I think, when he goes. But 8 months, that's our longest so far. We've had a 6-monther before.
Wow.
In the church, not in the house, but yeah, 8 months is our longest serving.
That's
foster.
so brilliant. I love that there's so much heart in that. That's so, what a just gift you're giving back to those animals, and it's got to be so rewarding. That's so beautiful.
It's a huge gift for me as well. Yeah, it's a massively rewarding way to spend your time.
Especially like you said, falling asleep. Working in this industry, falling asleep, crying every night, and just like, what the fuck am I doing here? And then to move to this of like, this is exactly what I'm doing. This is so rewarding, and man, and
I love my job too. My job is great, but it does just afford me the ability and the facility to do what I really love, which from the age of 14 has been working with rescues, and now I get to do that almost as much as my job. So it's not just a hobby that I get to do once a week if I'm lucky. It's an everyday thing that I'm doing all day, every day. And although I don't get paid for it, it is, we rehome cats and then they come back to stay in the cattery. So it does kind of help promote, I suppose, the business, and they help each other out. And caring for animals while they're here, a bit worried because their owners have gone on holiday without them, kind of thing, is just as much of a rewarding thing as looking after a sick one. So it does feel very much like I've landed on my feet, and I'm glad to be doing something that is honestly very me,
Yeah.
And that works in kind of right across all walks of life. I mean, I think when I first spoke to you a few days ago, and I said that things have been different, I think the way I explained it was I no longer drink or date, and my head is better for it, you know. And that all
Totally.
comes from the same kind of voyage of discovery as giving up, as it were, my previous career.
Yeah.
I then started to analyze all the other bits of my life and what I liked about it and what I didn't, and you know, and tell myself that it was okay to say, yeah, I maybe being in a bar drunk on a night out trying to pull some guy is not how I want to spend my downtime, but instead I would rather go for a 4 hour walk with a really good friend and a couple of cute dogs. You
Yeah.
know, that's my socializing now. That's how I operate. And I don't really get an awful lot out of drinking. I've never had the kind of relationship that you had with alcohol. I've never needed it in any way.
Yeah.
And I've never used it to feel better or anything like that. But equally, when I did drink and if I got drunk, I would feel like I'd lost control.
Mm-hmm.
And that feeling of losing control, because I'm such an epic control freak, panicked me to such a degree that I've been drunk to the degree where I've had horrific panic attacks over
Yikes.
just not quite being able to stay upright properly. Freaked me out to such a degree that I was having huge panic attacks. And you know, and it just doesn't serve me, alcohol. It doesn't. I'm a social enough, bubbly enough, I suppose, happy to talk to anybody kind of person as it is. I don't need it to feel social.
Right.
And I was only ever a social drinker, so therefore it becomes null and void, I suppose. And there's been so many stories of people who mean the world to me that have told a story of just the worst day of their lives, and so many of them start with, when I'd had a few too many drinks, or you
Right.
know, that it started to strike me as something that doesn't really need to be in my world. So, and it wasn't a difficult thing to give up because it wasn't something that was hugely prevalent, but
Right.
I don't need it, so I don't drink. And then I think I spent a lot of time in London sort of deciding that I wasn't happy because I only had my career and I needed other thing, you know, I needed a life, I needed a partner and another half or whatever. And so I tried to scale back my working hours a little bit so that I could go out and date and find, you know, and it was just the worst experience of my life. Honestly, I've just, for some people it's everything, you know, having a partner
Yeah.
and sharing their life with someone. But for me personally, it just isn't me. It's not something that I enjoy in any way. It brings me no joy.
Yeah.
And I love sharing my world with other people,
Yeah.
but but that doesn't have to be a intimate or sexual or whatever relationship in order for me to give the whole of myself to another person. I do that with my friends, you know.
Right.
And that those relationships for me are so important. And I think that was the hardest one to break, because I always felt like, and everybody says to you, oh, you're just waiting for the right person. And they might be right. You know, I'm never going to say I'm never going to date again. I might meet someone who's exactly up my street and perfect for me, and I can't say no.
Yeah.
But it took a lot for me to say to myself that you don't really want that, and that's not a bad thing. That's completely okay. And that was one of those things that I just went, right, okay, I'm also not going to start, you know, trying to find somebody to go out with or spend more time with. I just will spend time with the people that I love to bits, and that doesn't have to be anything other than a friendship. And that's taken such a huge pile of stress off my shoulders, because I always felt like I was failing at life because I hadn't found my partner in it, and I was supposed to be with someone else, and it's just not the case. It's just not true.
Yeah.
You know, I could be, and it could be a really nice thing for me to have, but I don't need it, and I don't need to feel bad for not having it. And that was the other thing that that change in my life. And I moved up here, and I just became so much more relaxed because I didn't feel like I had to put on a show to be the person that someone would want to date. I could just be myself and be more honest about who I was. And you know, I no longer wear makeup, and I look like a zookeeper half the time, you know. But I'm so completely comfortable in my own skin and my world now that I don't need somebody else to to make it okay for me to be that person. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So
I love
yeah, it
that.
was a lot of big changes, I'm definitely the more honest version of myself now, which is
Yeah.
a really pleasant place to be. And I think that's true of you as well. I think you're still that kind of smiley, really friendly, so cool to be around guy, but there is much more of an honesty to the photos of you like grinning ear to ear on your travels. It
Yeah.
seems to be certainly the truer version of yourself, which is really lovely to see.
Yeah, it is. It's I I'm smiling massively right now listening to you with you telling us, talking about you finding this peace inside of you. I love that.
Yeah,
And yeah, I mean it was a really, like I said earlier, it was the start of a really dark page of my life. I mean, took me to the edge of death. And once you get to that, it's like, okay, I have to figure some shit out in my life, and I have to find what I love. And I've said it a bunch, but I mean, there was this one song lyric that always stuck with me, and it was just snails see the benefit, the beauty in every inch.
mm,
And I just I got fascinated by that, especially when I was starting into my sober journey. And
yeah,
I really did. I fell in love with life, and I found what made me happy and what brought me joy. And
exactly,
I let down those, like, oh, I have to be this for my parents. I have to be this for this certain group of friends, or I have to be this, like, you compartmentalize yourself into all these different parts, these different rooms you walk in, of like, oh, I'm in Ohio. I have to be this to these people. Then I
exactly.
go on tour and I'm this to these people. And like, perfect strangers, they can just meet the real me because they don't know me. And that, and
Mhm.
I finally was just like, no, I can't do that anymore. I'm fully just going to be me, because I almost lost everything. So I realized just how fragile life is, and I was like, it's not worth hiding that anymore, or just not being my true self and being fully who I am.
Absolutely. Yeah, yeah.
You know. So yeah, it's
You
been a
man.
really, a really good awakening of all of that in me as well. So I love that you've been on that journey, and that you've had animals along the way with that. I
Yeah.
think that's such a
So
beautiful addition to it.
I think
Oh
someone
man.
else on your podcast said that someone had like left the touring industry because they wanted a dog. And that's essentially exactly what I did.
Yeah, I
I
mean,
was
I
getting so
understand that.
stroppy about the idea of not being able to have an animal permanently. I had rats when I lived in London,
Right.
pet rats. They were great. They're like tiny dogs. You can train them to do tricks and all sorts. They're awesome.
That's
But
amazing.
it's not quite the same as having a dog.
Right.
And I just got to the point where I was so fed up with the idea. There was a dog that I wanted to take home, and I never got to. But there was I just couldn't get past the idea that I couldn't have an animal in my life, and it seemed like such a basic right. But I was doing 80-hour weeks, and I
Right.
couldn't put an animal through that. So
Yeah.
um,
I,
I literally did leave London so I could have a dog, and it took me another, I think, 3 or 4 years to get Rita. I had 4 cats by the time I got her,
yeah.
um, but yeah, she's just been a lost everyone, total gift. And I think that's what people need to strive for. It's not, I'm not going to tell everybody don't date because it's stupid, or get an animal because it's the best thing you'll ever do, or you need to be in a career doing this, or give up your life or anything. You just need to be honest about it. It's that
Yeah.
simple.
Yeah.
You just need to figure out what it is that makes you feel calm, I guess,
Yeah.
and strive for that. Because, and don't get me wrong, I realized insanely the gift that I was given in being able to just walk away from my life. It was an incredible thing to be given that opportunity, and not everybody's in that boat. But certainly
Right.
need to figure out what's serving you and what's not, and leave the things that are not serving you, and are making your life difficult, or hard or sad,
Yeah.
and have the courage to say, people may tell me that I need those things. People may tell me that I'll feel better if I've got a boyfriend, but that might not be your truth. And
Yeah.
it's okay for you to be different from everybody else if it makes you happy.
Yeah. Yeah. Be weird. It's good. It's a good thing.
Yeah, for sure.
You know. Yeah. Yeah, I know. And like you said, it's not in everyone's, capacity to do that, but even just little truths in your life, just admitting to those and
Yeah,
like adapting your life to it. It doesn't have to be changing your full life and leaving a career and
no,
doing that, cuz obviously, like you have to get by, and you can't, not
yeah,
everyone can do that. But I think this time of COVID, I think, or I hope that if anything, that people have just taken the beautiful fact that we've all been given the gift of time back to
yeah,
figure out
definitely.
and think. And people in these unbelievably high-paced jobs, like my brother,
Mm,
he was a chef and he was doing 110-hour weeks and never seen his wife. And now he gets to, and he's playing music again. And, I hope that people have taken that step back and like truly enjoyed this time. I know a lot of people are like bored and ready to get back to it, but I'm like, this has been a beautiful gift of just like slowing the pace of life down. It's
yeah,
like the
absolutely.
amount of times I hear, "Oh, I don't have time to do that." Now it's like you do have
Mhm.
time. So take this time, use this time because it's so valuable, because it's your life. These hours that we all are staying home and doing what we're doing, it's like make them, learn the guitar or do something or read more if you've always wanted to read more. If it's just that
Sure.
simple of what that would bring you joy, is just reading a book a week or whatever it may be, take the time, because once the world comes back spinning, it's going to go fast again. And I hope people
Sure
just
is.
like,
It's going to go faster, I think, because everybody's going to need to make up for what they've missed,
right.
work longer hours in order to pay off the bills that they haven't managed to pay at this time.
Yeah.
This is honestly, me and my mum did so much first lockdown. We completely renovated the garden, and we were doing so much work. Myself and a very good friend of mine started committed to daily yoga practice, which we've
Yeah.
never done before, and it battered us, but it was incredible, and I'm still loving it. And it just such a even if it's only 10 minutes, just taking
Yeah.
that time to and just turning up for yoga is such a nice thing. It's like finding the time every day. I think I got to 126 days straight before I missed one, and I was distraught when I missed one. I was like,
Yeah.
I'd been out to look for a dog that had got lost and came home and gone straight to sleep, and then woke up the next morning going, "Oh God, I didn't do any yoga yesterday."
Yeah.
126 days down the pan. But
uh
now we do every day we can, and some days you just think, I don't want to do that today. I can't be bothered. I'm tired. I'm grumpy. I'm whatever. But
right.
then you go, no, come on, let's
Yeah.
go and do it. And just convincing yourself to turn up
Right.
is such an achievement, and it
Absolutely.
does make you feel better,
Yep.
even if you're not doing anything particularly physically demanding, or you just want to sit and do some breathing exercise for 10 minutes,
Right.
or whatever, however it works. It doesn't have to be yoga, but committing to doing something every day that that's in somehow benefits you,
Yeah.
even if it's making yourself a cup of some sort of herbal that's good for you tea, and just spending 10 minutes sitting
Yeah.
with your dog
Yeah.
quietly.
Yeah.
Give yourself that time, to enjoy yourself. It's so important, so important. And
Yeah.
yeah, this lockdown, the first lockdown for us, was such a gift. It really was. We came out of it with the best motivation and everything. This one's been slightly more difficult because it's winter now,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
it's harder to convince yourself to be all like, let's go do a 4 hour dog walk and
Right.
renovate the garden, when it's absolutely battering it down with rain the whole time. But
Right.
I think that's had an impact a bit on my mood, and the fact that it's gone on for so long now, and
Yeah.
from a business perspective, we'll struggle now, I think. But we'll get, it's all here, and we'll find it. We'll get back on track. We have our down days, but I think for the most part, we're still, you know, pretty positive about the whole thing, considering where we could be and all that kind of stuff. So, but
Right.
yeah, it's the time to just do the things that I've been saying. Oh, you know what? I'm going to do daily yoga for probably about 5 years now.
Right.
And it was right. We've got literally got nothing else to do.
Yeah.
Let's get
Let's
this done.
do it. Yeah.
And
No
my
excuses
brilliant
anymore.
friend, yeah, my brilliant friend doing it with me, sort of guilted me into, when you've got someone ringing you going, "Have you done your daily yoga today?" It's
Yes.
a good way to feel guilty about not doing it
Yeah.
days you don't.
Yeah.
So that was a real help. Now I've got past that first hurdle of this isn't something that feels normal to do every day. Now it's completely normal to me.
Yeah.
Even if she wasn't doing it so often, I think I could still carry on doing it, which is great. And
Yeah.
it's such a benefit. I feel so much better for it, and my mood improves, and my physical abilities improve. And I've got such a bad back from years of proving myself in the lighting industry and
Right.
picking up lights that big blokes can do.
Yeah.
As a tiny little 5'6" girl.
Yeah.
That my back is completely battered, and I've been seeing chiropractors for years over my back, and 126 days of daily yoga, and it's
Yeah.
so much better,
Yeah.
So
Amazing.
anything like that you can just bring yourself to do for even just a few minutes a day.
Yeah.
On the days that you don't want to do it,
Yes.
that's the best days. The
Yep.
days that you can't be bothered.
Yep.
By the end of it, you will just feel $1 million for having bothered to turn up and get it done.
100%. Yeah, it's just that challenge of like, I'm going to do this and I don't want to do it, but god damn it, I'm going to. And that, like, just accomplishing that in a day is something big. And I just, as you were talking, I remembered this other lyric that I really like, and it's like, it goes, take your time because it's your time to take.
Nice. I like that.
I remember seeing that one time and I was like, oh yeah, like, just slow down, man. Like, enjoy it. It's your time. It's your life, do the things you love and what makes you happy.
Absolutely.
All right. I have a couple questions that I ask everybody. And since you've been listening to the podcast, you probably kind of know where they're going. But first one, if I, obviously no restrictions or anything like that. Plane ticket. If I came to you and I had a plane ticket for you to anywhere in the world, where would you go?
I have a couple of kind of bucket list places, I suppose, that I would love to see. Canada is really high up the list, bizarrely.
Yeah.
And I'd love to spend a bit of time in Canada. And there are a few Austria, places that are pretty. I like pretty places.
Yeah.
And places with nature.
Canada's beautiful for that.
Just right out in the back of nowhere kind of thing.
Yeah.
But equally, I think at the moment, like, my biggest, the thing that made me watch you so much recently has been your trip in that camper. I would absolutely trade a plane ticket for like 3 weeks in a camper, and I would just go like to the Highlands of Scotland or all over Wales or the Peak District, whatever. Take Rita with me, dog in the van, me and her together. That's kind of, at the moment, if somebody asked me what my ideal holiday would be, I'd stay in the UK, not because I would want to be particularly in the UK, just because all I want to do is go somewhere where there's no houses and there's just hills or forests or whatever. And you don't necessarily have to go very far to find that.
Right.
And if I stayed here, I could take Rita with me, which is kind of everything to me at the moment.
Yeah, that's perfect.
I'm sort of in a place at the moment where I've done quite a lot of travel, and I think I will go back to it. I want to travel again, certainly. But at the moment, I feel just like my favorite holiday thing at the moment would be that me and my dog just bugger off to a cabin somewhere in the woods and go for really nice long walks up hills. And
that's brilliant.
That kind of thing. That would be the way I would spend the time if I had it. Would be, I think maybe just here with Ree, but not at home.
Yeah, I love it. I think that's perfect. I love that. All right. So, what would you want the world to know about you?
I think that's a really difficult question, because for somebody that, and any of my friends will tell you, talks about themselves a lot, I don't really like talking about myself very much. So for the world to know about me, I guess my heart immediately goes, well, it's not about me, is it? We don't need to talk about me. So I suppose, I guess based on what we've been talking about today, what I think the world should know is that I'm not brave, and I'm not special, and I'm not abnormal in any way. Well, I am epically abnormal, but and I don't mean that like, please tell me I'm special. I just mean it doesn't take an extreme person to have the courage to do things like be honest about your life. I'm just a normal human. I'm just a person, and it was really hard for me to to find that honesty in my life, and to be okay with it, and to be able to talk down those people that say that I threw away a X amount of grand career, or a great life in certain places. And I can say to them, yes, but my simple life is much happier. My dad posted something brilliant yesterday. He's just bought a canal barge to live on, which is amazing. I fully
Amazing.
want to inherit it, but it's fantastic. And he put something up that, a beautiful life, a simple life can be a beautiful life, or something along those lines. And I think what I would say to people is, or what the world should know about me, is that I'm not anything special. You don't have to look at me and go, oh, she's so brave to have done that, or she's so this, that, or the other to have gone through that. I'm just a normal person. And if you think that it's something that you need to go through as well, it's absolutely possible, because I'm not any different to anyone else. I don't have some big secret that no one else is going to get. I'm just like everyone else.
Yeah, I think that's
So
beautiful.
yeah.
But it's such a powerful message in that, of like, yeah, I think people get caught up in the I can't do that. I could never do that.
Yeah.
It's like, you
Mm-hmm.
can, because every extraordinary
it's okay
person,
to not want to.
right?
It's absolutely okay to be like, that's not for me, I don't want to do that. But don't be like too frightened or too
Yeah,
an inability to, because you have the ability to, if you want it.
right.
It's there.
Yeah, and I mean, it makes me think that so many people, when I was starting my sobriety journey, when I was in Ohio, were just saying, it's okay to settle, and I was like, I can't be that. I'm not shooting for like over the moon extraordinary, but I'm not settling. I'm gonna live my life, and that's my
Absolutely.
that's, I try to impart that on people too. So I love that you're vocalizing that as well, of it doesn't take this extreme person to do this. It's just be you, and find your truth, and live it. I love that.
Yeah.
All right. And if you had the ear of everybody in the world, what would you say to them?
I suppose my go-to answer to that question is that people should be more kind to each other. That's my, every time someone says to me, what do you tell the world? Be more kind. Come on, guys.
Yeah.
Just, we're all the same, be more kind. But then equally, I think that is a message which is being shouted from the rooftops at the moment, which I love, in ways like, there's a great program on Netflix called The Kindness Diaries, which is lovely.
Good.
Such a good program. And there's a British artist, Frank Turner, who wrote an entire album called Be More Kind, which is off the back of the presidential election, Donald Trump.
Yep.
It was like a counter album, and it's fabulous. And you've got your Ellen DeGeneres of the world, and now fabulously the Beautifully Human podcast, shouting to the world to be kind to each other, and that kind of thing. So that's kind of my go-to answer. But equally, I think so many people are saying it that maybe I don't need to. So to try and be a bit more not original, but use it to say something that hasn't necessarily been said as much. I thought about my lovely friend Irina, who is the woman in Romania who rescued Rita from a forest and nursed her back to health and sent her over to the UK. When I went to see her, she had this sentence that she said constantly, and I laughed at her so much for it, but actually it's genius. And every time there was a lull in conversation, or anything was a little bit quiet, or we stopped to make a cup of tea, or there was a change in direction, she would say, okay, tell me something. And I'm like, what? Tell you what? Just tell me something. And I'm like, being a Brit, we're very straight. We talk about the weather and what we do for a living. We don't converse with people that we don't know. It's very odd.
Yeah.
And so I started off kind of, well, I run a boarding castle in Southport, and answering all the proper questions. But I was there for 10 days, and the longer this went on, she never asked me a question, not once. She never said, tell me about that.
Yeah.
She just said, tell me something. And the longer it went on, the more open I became.
It's
And I
brilliant.
think that's kind of, there's a good essence of that question in this podcast and what you're trying to do. And I think that's what drew me to it so much,
Yeah.
is that you're saying, okay, tell me a story about whatever, but you're not saying, tell me what you do for a living or tell me what you do here. You're just saying, give me your story.
Yeah.
And I think that opens up to people potentially saying things that they've wanted to say out loud for such a long time, but
Yep.
nobody's ever asked them.
Yeah.
And there's a huge release in it. And I think Irina probably knows more of my stories than friends that I've had for 10 or 15 years,
Yeah.
because she just let me talk and she listened. So
Yes.
my advice to the world would be to constantly, if you're getting to know someone, or even with the people that you think you know well, ask them, tell me something, and
I
see what they say and listen to the answers.
Yes. I I think that's so brilliant. I think it's so brilliant because something so beautiful about that. There's so much that I've really enjoyed about doing this, but like one of the most brilliant and beautiful parts is, yeah, getting to know the people that I thought I knew. Hearing
Yeah.
stories that I never knew of people that I've known
Mm-hmm.
for forever. And then I hear a story and I'm like, "Oh shit, I didn't even know that." And then
Sure.
truly listening, giving that gift to someone of listening, like asking
Yeah.
how you're doing. I remember a buddy of mine who's from Denmark. He was on
Mm-hmm.
tour with us in the States, and he always harped on me. He would, because as you walk by, I do it all the time. I walk by even on walks now, and I'm like, "Hey, how you doing?" As we're passing,
Yeah, exactly.
and he was like, "Why do you ask them when you don't want to listen?" And I had
Yeah.
never thought about it, and I was like, "Yeah, that is the most, like, that is such an important question. Is like, how are you?" And we just throw it out like,
Yeah.
"Hey, how's it going?" And then it's like, boom, ships in the night, and it's
Mm-hmm.
I you know, truly asking and then listening is such a gift. But I love that of like, yeah, tell me something. And I love doing it on
Mm-hmm.
here. I want people to come on, and if they want to talk about what they do, cool. If they don't, great. I'll just learn about
Yeah.
you. You tell, like, we'll navigate this conversation. I have a list of questions that if something slows and the conversation goes to a lull, I can look over and say, cool, here's this question. But
Yeah.
I love just flowing with it. And yeah, it is kind of like that, which is, I love, just tell me something.
It's such a great sentence.
It
Tell me
is
something.
because
The automatic response is always, well, what do you want to know? No,
right.
it doesn't matter what I want to know. Just tell me something.
Yes. It's so good. It
It's lovely.
automatically makes it a little awkward, which I always like. I
Oh
like
yeah.
awkward
Yeah.
situations, but yeah, and that's why I like asking what would you want the world to know about you? Because I've had so many people, when I ask them to be on here, or the blog part of it that I've done of like, me, you want me? And I'm like, yes, because
I was like, wow,
yeah,
that's not interesting. Huh?
yeah,
Like, no.
because
Yeah.
every story has power. Every
Yeah.
every experience that you've had, somebody else has had in some way, shape, or form, and it's just, I like asking that one because it's an empowerment of yourself. You get to say something
Mm-hmm.
about you. And I've had people, when I ask it on here, and I don't, normally I don't say I'm gonna what questions I'm gonna ask because I don't know. I just like to let it go.
Yeah.
I always ask
Yeah.
those at the end because I think it's a nice way to end. But
Sure.
yeah, I've had so many people, when I ask, just be like, "Ooh," and just go silent, and I'm like,
Yeah.
it is a tough
It's a really
question.
hard question to answer. Yeah, it
Yeah,
really is.
but I like doing it because it gives you that moment to like boost yourself and put some confidence in yourself of like, even if it's what I like about myself, it's a good like, yeah, this is me, you know.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
Oh
no, it's
man.
great.
Well, Jen, this has been so lovely. I'm so happy that you messaged me and that we reconnected and now had a beautiful
Yeah,
conversation that I've known you 7 years of my life, which is nuts. You've
I know, it's insane, isn't it? And yeah, probably we've spoken like, I don't know, 12 times or something over that 7 years. So
yeah.
hopefully now with this reconnection and with learning so much about each other, it'll be a good basis for the start of a kind of closer friendship, which will be
Yes.
really lovely. And if
Yes.
you guys are in the UK again, it'll be
Yes.
a hugely different experience to the first one. I'm not going to take you sightseeing
That's
around the pubs of
perfect.
London, but if you want to come and walk the hills of Lancashire with me and my dog, you guys are most welcome. Like
That sounds perfect. I've seen the pubs in London. I've done that. I need to see the
yeah,
rest of the
did
UK
that bit.
now. Yeah, I've done that.
Quite
That's
right too.
old
Yeah,
news.
move
So
on.
I
Yeah,
very much look forward to that. And
fab.
I hope you have a beautiful rest of your afternoon and evening. And yeah, we definitely will talk more. I love that
Sounds good.
these conversations add depth to friendships or start friendships.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I think it's going to be lovely to continue a strong friendship with you.
Yes. All right.
Fab.
I will
All right,
talk
pleasure
to
talking to you, my love.
Yeah. All right. See you. Bye.
See you soon. Take care. Bye bye.
Thank you for listening to the Beautifully Human podcast. To hear more beautiful stories from beautiful humans, follow us on Spotify and rate and subscribe to us on Apple Podcasts. Follow us on Instagram at Wanderlust Moon Duo. Peace signs up.